Shrine is a game. To be a little more specific, it's a free-to-play FPS game. And, to be even more specific, Shrine is a free-to-play FPS game created in the Doom engine by a single developer, Scumhead, that was ported to Steam by another person with the username jberg and released at the tail end of 2019. And yeah, did I mention it was free? Yes, this is a truly free game. No microtransactions, no secret fees, nothing. You can download the game, which is under 100 megabytes, and play it from start to finish without sacrificing any of your hard-earned dosh. Anything released without any monetization attached is quite rare, and a big kudos goes to Scumhead for releasing a fully finished game without the expectation of profit. But enough about how much the game costs, or rather how much it doesn't cost. What the heck is Shrine all about? Well, I'm still kind of trying to figure that out myself. The game takes place in a gothic Lovecraftian world according to Scumhead, and you play as a skinless monster named Tusk, presumably named that because he has two tusks sticking out of his mouth. Your journey takes you from spooky forests to spooky snow-covered mountains to spooky cathedrals and, believe it or not, a pretty spooky womb. You traverse these realms to eventually come up against the Old King, who is quite possibly the cousin or even brother of Old King Dorian from Demon's Souls, which itself is a pretty spooky game. Upon completion of this journey, Tusk takes the Old King's throne, and that's essentially the entire plot, which, considering this is a Doom-inspired game, is about all the plot you should expect. To quote the great Doom developer John Carmack, story in a game is like story in a porn movie. It's expected to be there, but it's not that important. There are 16 levels you'll fight your way through to eventually reach the throne. Along the way, you'll find 8 unique weapons that you'll use on 13 different enemies. That's a lot of numbers. I mean, probably the most numbers I've ever seen, honestly. The levels all follow the standard Doom affair. Just shoot a bunch of enemies, find key cards to unlock new paths, and explore every nook and cranny for secrets. It really doesn't take the IQ of a Rick and Morty fan to beat this game. I mean, all that's really required of you are quick reflexes and a hungry trigger finger. One interesting way in which Shrine sets itself apart from Doom is in its lack of traps. It's common in Doom to pick up an item and immediately get pounced by like 1,000, maybe even 1,000,000 demons at once, but this is not the case in Shrine. As far as I can tell, there wasn't a single trap the whole game, and this threw me off big time. While traps are certainly annoying at points in Doom, they also do break up the monotony of levels and keep you alert at all times. The levels themselves are very short. The shortest levels took under a minute to complete, while some of the quote-unquote longer levels took around 5 minutes to finish. Even some of the boss levels, which are quite difficult, are pretty brief as well. This all adds up to the game being very short in length, only taking me about an hour to complete in total. Now that said, each level is quite unique in not just how they differ in layout, but in how they play and look as well. The skyboxes stand out, with most looking pretty stunning. Many of the levels are quite claustrophobic, with winding corridors and low ceilings, but on the other hand, some levels are actually surprisingly open, which is generally uncommon for Doom kind of games. This allows for plenty of interesting engagements and means that switching weapons in combat becomes a must, depending on what fighting area you find yourself in. Speaking of weapons, this short little indie game packs some big, honestly kind of weird weapons. We've got classics, you know, a pistol, a shotgun, super shotgun, minigun, and a fancy little laser beam. We've also got not classics, like the Splinter, a gun that has a head, shoots a giant glob of what I think is plasma and runs out of ammo in about 2 shots. We've also got the Bone Saw. Yeah, the Bone Saw. It's basically just a chainsaw with a different skin. I probably used it once throughout the entire playthrough. And last but not least, we have the Placenta Launcher. Yes, a placenta launcher. No, I'm not crazy, you're crazy. A placenta cannon? It shoots exploding placentas and acts as a grenade launcher with super bouncy grenades. Very fun to use and very easy to damage yourself with. These weapons are all very unique in their designs and are generally a blast to use. Now that being said, there are some minor balance issues. The pistol becomes essentially entirely useless immediately after finding it, and the super shotgun and placenta launcher are by far the most useful weapons throughout the majority of the game. But I mean, the super shotgun and rocket launcher were also 2 of the best weapons in Doom as well, so it's not a big deal. And as long as we're being honest, the pistol in Doom is probably even more useless than the one in Shrine. Shrine also has a mechanic that I can't remember seeing in another FPS game. All the weapons have the same ammo pool, Ammo gained is shared among all the guns, but ammo lost is not. In other words, you pick up ammunition for one gun, and you get ammunition for all guns. Now, that said, let's say you use your minigun and laser beam a lot. Those guns won't be draining ammo from your shotgun and placenta launcher. Ammunition works similar to mana from RPG games. And while this is a unique system, it generally results in some guns, such as the pistol, shotgun, and laser beam, becoming less useful, if not totally obsolete, because more powerful weapons like the minigun, super shotgun, splinter, and placenta launcher all share the same ammunition, but put out much more damage. It's still an interesting system though, and with some additional polishing, I could see the ammo sharing being a really neat feature. Being a game heavily inspired by Doom, it's only natural that the enemies are Doom inspired as well. I mean, you've got enemies that fit the Doom archetype to a T. Grunts with hit scan weapons that are like zombies, projectile throwing enemies that are like imps, larger versions of these guys that are essentially barons of hell, and a creature that acts identically to Pinky Demons. There are also some foes that are somewhat outside of Doom's style, such as giant knights that serve as mini-bosses, or the Seraphim, who are total bullet sponges that are destined to ruin your day. In terms of difficulty, I found Shrine's balance to be pretty good. Some levels are quite a bit harder than others, but I mean, that's why quick saving exists. I played on Acolyte difficulty, which, as far as I can tell, is essentially the game's hurt me plenty setting. Playing Shrine, you have to expect to die. Enemies can do a lot of damage and health can be somewhat rare to come by at points. In addition, there are mega health pickups that give you 200 health, but no mega armor pickups, so armor is quite rare to come by and you'll probably never have full armor once throughout the entire game. This means that sprinting around enemies and dodging their attacks is the only way that you'll be able to beat the game, especially when you get to the final boss. The old king might be old, but you know, he's imbued with almighty old man strength, which means he'll whoop you once, twice, even thrice. He probably killed me upwards of 10 times before I finally beat him. I mean, screw the old king. In general, I really appreciated how strange a lot of the creatures looked. Some of them, like the floating crucifixes or seraphim, legitimately freaked me out the first time I encountered them. They're all easily identifiable though, so you'll know which weapon to use when dealing with each enemy. My only minor gripe concerns some of their health points. I mean, some creatures are massive, they're big, such as the Barons of Hell or the aforementioned Giant Knights, so it's obvious that they're going to have plenty of HP. Now, that said, some smaller creatures like the Crucifix have obscene amounts of health, and Shrine's version of Lost Souls have probably over doubled the health they had in Doom. Whoa, dude, what are these? Okay. Dude, what? The sound design in the game is generally pretty good. All the weapons sound beefy with the exception of the laser beam, which sounds like someone leaving the tap water on. The music is also quite good. There's a mix between ambient pieces that heighten the mood of the level and faster paced retro sounding electric songs that hype you up. The ambient pieces remind me quite a bit of Trent Reznor's work on Quake 1's soundtrack, and oh yeah, the end screen music after beating a level is total banger. In conclusion, I personally really enjoyed Shrine. It was a fun hour's worth of gameplay and left me really wanting more. From what I've seen, there's a Shrine 2 on Steam as well that could scratch that itch for further gameplay. I played quite a few indie shooting games in my day, including the fantastic Zombie Turkey Outbreak, and this is a very well polished experience for anyone looking for a quick old school FPS experience. I know I mentioned it earlier, but it needs to be said again. This game is 100% no holds barred, free, and only takes up about 100 megabytes on your hard drive. I'd go out on a limb and yeah, I'd say that's a pretty good deal. If you're looking for a quick, free Doom excursion that can be finished in a single sitting, look no further than Shrine.
Hey, you, don't be a fool. Did you know that a salty Bendro will show that you are super cool? Hey, you, a like will show you rule. It's totally free and guarantee your help will be my fuel.